Hi everyone, this is my run on the Despair Gathering Nearby Chaos, specifically the Xtreme TCC challenge. And for those who are not familiar with what the Xtreme TCC or TCC challenge is, I will put the description and criteria inside the video description so you can check it out. Now for this fight, the TCC Extreme Challenge requires you to plan two teams in advance. One team for the Despair Gathering Nearby with the Sephiroth fight, and the second team with the Despair Gathering Afar with the Exdeath fight. And as you can see in the video description, the criteria requires you to have both teams be of the same crystal combination. So for example, over here I used Paladin Pecil, Zack and Ramza, which is the white, black and yellow crystal combination, and therefore for the other chaos fight with Exdeath to complete the extreme challenge, I also need a party consisting of white, black and yellow crystal characters, but you are not allowed to use the same characters for both fights. So essentially two totally separate teams with the same crystal combination makeup. I will also put a link to the other chaos fight in the video description so you can check it out. So quick overview of this fight before I head into the battle itself. And for those wanting to attempt the Extreme TCC challenge, I would highly recommend to start off with the Sephiroth fight first, because it is the more challenging of the two fights. And the main challenge here isn't actually the fight itself, but the tight turn requirements. So both chaos fight, as you can see, requires you to clear within 80 turns. And with all the banned characters in the TCC challenge, as well as the strict criteria of having the same crystal combination, the real challenge is getting enough damage in with your non-synergy team to complete the fight within 80 turns. And the Sephiroth fight is harder because the Sephiroth actually has more HP than Exdeath, and so this is a slightly more tanky fight, and therefore having stricter turn and damage requirements. The other challenge about this fight, of course, is that Sephiroth, other than his black materia, also has a single target brave and HP attack in the form of Octaslash. So when either Shinryu or Sephiroth is targeting all, you know an HP attack is coming and therefore you can prepare for it. But the problem with Sephiroth is that even when he is targeting a single target party member, there's always a chance that he could use Octaslash. And from what I see, his attacks doesn't really follow a set pattern. There seems to be random in terms of which attack he chooses to use. And therefore, if he bricks someone with Octaslash, there's a high chance that it will lead to significant damage and maybe even death of a party character. So for this reason, I choose to use Zack in this fight. Zack still has pretty significant DPS if he's fully maxed out at this stage of the game, and he can absorb all of Sephiroth's attacks. So even Sephiroth's Fervent Blow, which is a multi-hit brave attack, is nicely absorbed by Zack, and all the Octaslash brave attacks are also absorbed nicely by Zack's shield mechanics. And Zack being able to taunt both bosses helps out very nicely, allowing your other two party members to go all out on the damage requirements. Now for both fights, both Shinryu and either Sephiroth or Exdeath also has a party-wide HP attack. So Shinryu, as you can see here, has the ability called Air Drive, which is a guaranteed party-wide HP damage. And when Shinryu is low HP, I think roughly about at the 25% HP or below, it also has the Crystal Wave attack, which is a stronger guaranteed hit group magic HP attack. The air drive tends to deal around 6,300 damage and the crystal wave around 11,000 HP damage, and therefore on top of that, both fights, Sephiroth and Exdeath also has party-wide HP attacks. So Sephiroth of course has the black materia, and therefore you actually really need at least one party member with burst healing capabilities, and that is why I chose Paladin Cecil. Paladin Cecil still has quite good damage once maxed out, and he provides healing in the form of his S2 as well, his Holy Flame attack. To note also that Paladin Cecil also has some mild attack aura potencies for the party, as well as his additional ability granting the entire party Holy Elemental attack, which can make full use of his Holy Imperil debuff on the enemy. This is very useful in the later parts of the fight when the boss's defenses are buffed due to the chaos mechanics, especially below the 50% HP mark. Now to round off the party, I chose to use Ramza, and that's really because of the strict turn requirements. Ramza HP +++ attack doesn't take a turn count, it's always a free turn, and his EX ability deals very nice damage on top of battering the party and debuffing the bosses as well. This is particularly useful on the later part of the stage, because you need to complete the fight within 80 turns. The challenge is in the later parts of the fight where the boss's defenses are buffed so much that your attacks start to deal significantly lower damage, and it will be more challenging to whittle down the boss's health at the later parts of the fight. So that's why having both Ramza and Cecil with their attack buffs helps to push damage through even when the boss's defenses are buffed. And my summon for both fights is Chocobo because of the Xtreme TCC challenge requirements. So other than that, if you look at my party members makeup, Zack has Refined Spear of Ardyn, Sephiroth's full sphere and his own sphere equipped. Paladin Cecil has 3 Refined Spheres equipped, as you can see here. And Ramza only has 1 Refined Sphere, which is Waka's. Other than that, the entire party is fully MLB'd with full summon and character bots, and I cannot stress how important this is. Every little bit of damage helps to push damage through, and you really need every little bit of help you can get to try to finish within the 80 turns. Even with this makeup, it took me multiple tries to finish just under 80 turns. So without further ado, let's head on to the battle. See you there. Okay, so starting off the fight, it's very important to take note of skill users, because you want to try to conserve ability users for the later part of the fight when the boss's defenses are buffed. So firstly, with Ramza, I used Shout 2 times to get to 3 stacks of his Shout buff as soon as possible, so that I can start spamming his free turns HP +++ attack. With Paladin Cecil, I started off here with his EX skill since he starts the fight fully charged. And then with Zack, I start off with his Chain Slash on both the targets. This is to apply lock on both targets so that they'll be targeting Zack the entire fight. The other thing to take note with Paladin Cecil is that I spammed his Luminous Orb, which is his converted HP attack, at the start of the fight. And that's because, as I mentioned, the boss's defenses are not yet buffed, and that attack still does significant damage. I wanted to save almost all of his skill users for the later part of the fight. The other thing to take note with Paladin Cecil, which is very important here if you don't have any other healer, is that his Holy Flame has very limited skill users, and I saved most of it for the later parts of the fight. At the start of the fight here, you can see even though my party is hurt from Shinryu's HP attack, I didn't use his Holy Flame to heal. That's because really at the start, the bosses tend to use HP attacks very infrequently. Paladin Cecile comes with a 10% HP regen aura, and just allowing your character to have turns will gradually heal them up to full HP. Zack also, of course, as a tank, has other sources of healing included for himself. So that doing this allows me to save all 6 of Paladin Cecile's Holy Flame skill users for the later part of the fight. Now once Zack reaches his EX, you want to try to maintain 100% uptime of his EX buff for the entire fight. There is actually a risk of it falling off because Sephiroth has the attack that can reduce Zack's Brave to 1, and thereafter it is possible that Shinryu breaks him even through the shield, and if Zack gets broken he actually loses the shield. Having said that, it's quite rare that this will happen, and as long as you can quickly get his EX back up after that, you should be fine. Also, his shield only lasts for 4 turns, and that means that in between his EX you want to be using at least one ability use to charge his EX meter so that you can use Zack's EX before his shield completely runs out. So the other thing to take note is the damage order, which is really important in this fight so that you can finish within 80 turns. You really need to capitalize fully on splash damage as much as possible, which is coming from Ramza's Enervate and Zack's EX as well. So because of this, my damage order is firstly on Sephiroth as much as possible. I will still sometimes target Shinryu if I need to break it, but otherwise I will be focusing mainly on Sephiroth. And the goal here is to bring Sephiroth down to 50% HP. And at 50% HP, his stats will be buffed as per normal Chaos standards. And that's when I switch targets to Shinryu and just let splash damage slowly take down Sephiroth's health. With Shinryu, once I start targeting him at the later parts of the fight, it's quite important to try to burst down Shinryu at the last about 20 to 25% of its health, because at that stage of health, Shinryu will start to use his stronger AoE HP attack, which is the Crystal Wave attack that does about 11,000 HP damage to your entire party. That's also the best place to save your summon for, so that you get the extra few turns to quickly burst down Shinryu before the HP damage piles up. And that's why also I tend to save Paladin Cecile's Holy Flame attack, so that at that part of the fight where HP attacks are more common, I at least can use Paladin Cecile to provide some relief healing to the party. Okay, so this is an example of him using his Luminous Blast. You can see it still does nice damage, and it also has a 20% splash on the other target, which comes in very nicely. Because Zack has his shield up, Sephiroth is actually pretty harmless. Only the Black Materia will deal party HP damage once Zack's shield is up and Sephiroth is taunted. But you can prepare for that because you can obviously see when Sephiroth is planning to use Black Materia when he is targeting the entire party that you have. One other thing to take note is that Sephiroth's Black Materia damage mechanics is a party-wide AoE gravity-based attack, which will then absorb your party's brave and blast it back to your party in the form of HP damage. That's why when he is about to use Black Materia, you want to try to keep your party's brave as low as possible. So take that chance to just dish out all your brave in the form of HP damage. The good thing about this fight is that both Shinryu and Sephiroth's group HP attack doesn't come with a breath attack, so their HP attacks will never be able to break you, so you can freely dump all your brave and not worry about getting broken and taking extra damage from that. And in particular, because Ramza's Enervate EX ability caps out your entire party's brave, if Sephiroth is about to use Black Materia, you do not want to use Ramza's Enervate then, because it will then provide Sephiroth with a lot of brave to absorb and will very likely lead to a party KO through his Black Materia. So when you see the message powers further heightened, this is a message that Sephiroth has hit the 50% HP threshold and has gained buff to all his stats, including defense. So at this point, this is where I start to switch target to Shinryu. And from here on in, the goal is to just whittle down Shinryu until it is dead. Near the end of the fight, as much as possible, I still try to kill both bosses at the same time. So there are certain points of the fight at the near end where I do switch targets a bit to target Sephiroth. But you have to be very careful, because when Shinryu is near death, its frequency of HP attack goes up, and you can very easily die to back-to-back HP attacks from both Sephiroth and Shinryu at that stage in time. Okay, so this Crystal Crush attack is something that you need to take note of as well. Because Shinryu is always targeting Zack due to taunt, Crystal Crush will always land on Zack. And it comes with a dispel mechanic, so it will remove all generic buffs on Zack. Luckily, his shield is a framed buff, so therefore that cannot be dispelled. However, he does lose all the generic buffs from him and Ramza's skills. And that's why I saved all of Zack's S2, and I only use them once the buffs have either run out or have been dispelled by Shinryu's Crystal Crush. Zack doesn't have that many ability users, so if you spam his S2, you will find yourself in a situation where he doesn't have those generic buffs anymore and you cannot reapply them. So I tend to try to time his S2 after Shinryu uses Crystal Crush. Also, I wanted to note something before Shinryu hits the 50% HP mark. I saved every character's AA ability for the second phase of the fight after both bosses are below 50%. This is because the stat up and buffs that they provide helps a lot to push damage through at a stage where the boss's defenses are buffed. So for example, Ramza's AA gives himself a boost in attack, Zack grants himself additional overflow, brave, as well as attack up. And Paladin Pecil, very importantly, grants the entire party with Holy Enchant, which will actually allow you to do weakness damage if the bosses remain debuffed, inflicted with the Holy Imperil from Paladin Pecil. This helps to push damage through, even when the boss's defenses are pretty high. Okay, so Aurora Charge Plus is the game telling you that Shinryu has hit 50% HP threshold and he has then buffed his defenses. So from here on in, this is where it's a good time to start using AA abilities as well. Okay, so I've popped Paladin Pecil's AA, and during Ramza's turn here, I also popped his AA before I used his EX. Okay, so this is the dangerous part. Shinryu's HP is in the red, so therefore there's a chance that his all attack here could be the more powerful version of his HP attack, which may kill off Ramza because it does about 11,000 HP damage. I really had no choice here but to pop my summon or risk Ramza dying. I would have liked to save the summon for a short while more, but I rather pop summon than to have Ramza potentially biting the dust. Okay, so at this stage of the game, it starts to get very dangerous because Shinryu's attack is guaranteed to be the more powerful form of HP attack, which will deal about 11,000 HP damage to your entire party. If both Shinryu and Sephiroth does their group HP attack back to back, it will spell a wipe. So at this stage of the game, you really need to try to finish it as soon as possible. However, you also need to finish it within 80 turns, which means that if you just focus on one target and neglect the other, you won't be able to finish the fight in the prerequisite number of turns. So here you can see Shiryu does his Crystal Wave and it does 11,043 damage to the party. Having Paladin Pecil's Holy Flame helps a lot as well to provide relief healing. Here I had no choice but to target Sephiroth a little bit. That's because Shinryu was about to die, but Sephiroth still have quite a bit of HP left. And with just 12 turns remaining, I'm at turn 68 now. At this stage, I really need to capitalize on splash damage more than ever. So I had to switch targets to Sephiroth for a little bit. Luckily, Paladin Pecil still has quite a few ability users left because I spammed his Luminous Blast at the start of the fight. And this allows me to use his Holy Flame to heal the party and his Saint Fall attack to battery the entire party so that they can still deal quite good damage here. Okay, so Shinryu is about to use his Crystal Wave attack, but because all my party members are 12,000 and above, I know I can comfortably tank the hit. So this is why I still continued targeting Sephiroth to try and even out the HP a little bit in the last 8 turns of the fight. Okay, so I've tanked the Crystal Wave attack, and I know that I will be able to kill Shinru off before its next Crystal Wave attack since it's so close to dying. So at this stage of the game, it's really all about targeting Sephiroth down. He is also about to use Black Materia, so that's why I used healing with Paladin Pecil instead of his EX. Okay, so I checked my HP to make sure that I'm still meeting the mission requirements of less than 20,000 HP damage taken. Luckily, I still do. And this is a very crucial decision to be made here. I could use Ramza's HP+++ to get a free turn of damage in, but his next turn is pretty far off, and I wanted to use his Enervate as soon as possible to deal significant damage and battery the party. And I checked his Galvanize and I saw that using Galvanize would bring his turn forward because of the high turn rate, and it also batteries the party. So because of that, I decided to use a turn using Galvanize rather than HP+++. And here nicely Zack has his EX up, and a combination of Apocalypse as well as Ramza's Enervate will allow me to kill off Shinryu just from the splash damage. And Ramza's Enervate will also battery the entire party, which will allow me to quickly and nicely finish Sephiroth off. And that's it. If you enjoyed the video, do leave a like, subscribe or leave a comment. Still check out the link for the other Chaos Fight, the Exdeath one for the Xtreme TCC challenge as well. Till then, bye bye.